You know how sometimes you watch something that's so confronting, so unsettling, and so out there, yet you're transfixed, and even years later, you often think back to how, man, that was a performance. That was a statement. And for 14-year-old me, that something was Lady Gaga's live VMA performance of Paparazzi in 2009. A gruesome commentary of the obsessive, vampiric nature of Hollywood and the all-consuming price of fame. What really cemented it as an iconic moment in music history was when Gaga stumbled over to the center of the stage, fake bleeding from her chest as her backup dancers hung her lifeless body for all to gawk, marvel at, and photograph. And it was haunting enough watching it as a teenager whose daily wholesome diet primarily consisted of cartoons and reruns of Friends, but it's also morbid now, looking back and realizing how much it accurately reflects real-life celebrity culture. How throughout history, we've learned to not only deify public figures and famous artists, but revel in their inevitable destruction under the pressure of the spotlight. Even in death, no matter how dark or tragic, their exploitation lives on. I'd like to say things have gotten better over the years, but Gaga's message continues to be as relevant as ever. We've never really broken the cycle of bringing celebrities up to the top of the world before deciding we've had enough of them for whatever arbitrary, trendy reason and tear them down from the pedestal in the most vicious way possible. It girls, in particular, always seem to be walking a significantly fine line. Talk too much and accidentally interrupt your castmates during interviews? Apparently that's enough to get a Twitter hate train on your tail, even if you are, 12 years old, deemed as too poised, too wholesome, too perfect, which apparently is also a flaw. Well, there's now a hate hashtag with your name on it. Be relatable, but not too relatable, because then you'll eventually be deemed as fake and people won't be able to stand you. And you can forget growing out of your clean-cut image. Oh no, if you're a child star, you're one forever, sorry. I actually made a whole video dissecting that particular phenomenon called The Tragedy of the Teen Queen if you're interested. But we've seen this practice with Madonna in the 80s, we've seen it with Britney Spears, we've seen it with Miley Cyrus, Anne Hathaway, Jennifer Lawrence, and in 2024, the public tried to knock another off their supposed pedestal with the year's arguably most notable pop sensation, Chappell Roan. If you didn't know, Chappell Roan is an American singer-songwriter who's honestly my favorite artist currently. If you somehow haven't heard any of her stuff yet, I highly recommend. But aside from the well-deserved virality her music received last year, her multiple Grammy nominations and 2025 award for Best New Artist, and the fact that her debut albums topped the UK charts for the second time this year, I'm sure we've all seen how she's also made the internet rounds for having bluntly and unapologetically called out the weird and intrusive nature of fan culture since her quote-unquote overnight rise to fame. Of course, a lot of people sympathize with her, understanding her need for boundaries, but at the same time, her honesty spurred on a tidal wave of backlash, claiming she's ungrateful and not made for her job as a pop star. And look, it goes without saying that none of this is new. These blurred lines between fan and celebrity have been around for decades, with multiple songs and movies made about the double-edged sword and volatility of fame and fan worship. Even in the few months shortly after Chappell's plea for privacy, other high-profile stars have had to deal with their own share of unhinged stans and the creepy, sometimes threatening practices that come with them. And it all got me really curious about this dynamic we've cultivated over the years and what we've grown to accept as normal. How many of us are prone to feeling like our favorite artists owe us in some way, especially since we do play a bit of a part in helping them reach the success they do. The whole thing has been a trending conversation in the past half year, reigniting concerns around the phenomenon of parasocial relationships, with people discussing just how much fans are entitled to their favorite celebrities and the boundaries that should be set, along with how they're enforced. Given the buzz around not just what Chappell, but other stars and their audiences have had to say on the matter, the discourse has since been a messy one. So naturally, while I am a little late to the party, I thought I'd throw in my 2 cents in the form of a half-hour video. Let's go. So I'm going to keep this section short and sweet since a history of parasocial celebrity relationships isn't exactly the point of this video, but it's still good to have a quick context of how the hell we even got here. Parasocial relationships, a term coined in the 1950s, describes the one-sided connection people feel with public figures, an illusion of friendship despite never having met them. Now, most of the time, this is towards people in the real world, but as I explored in one of the earlier videos of this channel, a link here if you want to check it out, it can also happen between fans and and fictional characters. And although it seems like the topics only gained traction in the past few years, these imagined relationships have been around way before we even had a name for it. In fact, existing for as long as celebrity culture itself. With the boom of gossip columns in the 1930s to 40s, people were granted a more candid look into the lives of public figures you'd normally only ever see or hear on the radio, in cinema, and later, television. These features would indulge in the little details of their private affairs and characters, and as a result, readers felt like they were getting to know these celebrities on a more personal level to some extent. These lay the foundation for the tabloid culture we know today. Now there are entire magazines dedicated to exploiting the private lives of celebrities, TV programs like TMZ, the birth of the gossip blog like The Online Swamp owned by Perez Hilton. And as we've seen throughout the years, as popular as this stuff is, it's steeped in a long history of misogyny, body shaming, and overall cruel treatment of stars. However, it still kept fans and the casual onlooker a world's length away from the celebrity. For the most part, they remained these almost deity-type figures far removed from our reality. There was a clear separation, this curated image that fans could only ever glimpse at, but never truly influence or participate in shaping themselves. Of course, this sort of content was still very much intrusive and prying at times, but it was largely controlled by an exclusive few who had direct access to celebrities. And I'd argue that this allowed stars to maintain a sense of mystique and remain distant from the everyday fan. Then came social media.
Some advice for you.
Yes, be respectful.
I'll be respectful.
That's my advice for you.
My name.
Ask if you can take a video, but you're just shooting video.
No, you know
So
me.
be
I'm
respectful.
famous.
I don't want to talk to you.
You could argue that all the tabloid mags of the past walked, so this era of rampant celebrity gossip could run. Now that everyone can have their own public platform online, social media basically democratized this area of entertainment. And the fact that even celebrities themselves participate in this space and are sometimes incentivized to, means their lives are bared further for everyone to peer into and pick at more than ever. Anyone can now message their favorite artist online, retweet their musings on Twitter, check in on their daily activities, or comment on the latest photo they decided to share. Anyone can now also broadcast their thoughts, opinions, and even conspiracies around said artists to a potential audience of hundreds or thousands, making this sort of content an even greater money-making beast than it was before. If you thought the misogyny and body shaming were awful back then, well, now you get to see it in every corner of the internet. It's also encouraged everyday people to go out and post sightings of their favorite celebrities in the wild. Bonus points, of course, if they're caught doing something scandalous, like being out with a potential love affair, something that's sure to make Stan Twitter and TikTok go wild with all sorts of wacky and juicy theories on their personal life. And hey, if you manage to hop on the right trends at the right time, say the latest actor or actress everyone seems to be creeping on or piling on this week, then you've got a surefire way of gaining views, likes, and even money if you're savvy enough. So while our favorite artists appear more relatable and accessible in today's internet age, it seems like they've also been further shaped into mere products or fodder for social media content, and less like actual people. At the same time, we can't deny that this new online era of celebrity culture has also made it easier to hold public figures accountable for their actions. With the chance to speak your piece to an audience of thousands or millions even, people have rightfully exposed certain high-profile individuals for questionable or even criminal actions in their past, with some even caught doing some sick shit in the present. I'm sure a handful of heinous names have already come to mind, and if they're on YouTube, likely the cringeworthy apology that came with it. This can be earth-shattering for some fans who've developed an attachment to said person because of how good, trustworthy, and aspirational they made themselves out to be. Many have even made this the bread and butter of their public branding. But you could argue that there's a certain offshoot of this particular culture that can sometimes come off a little cancel happy. While the people I displayed earlier on screen may have very well deserved their backlash and in some cases arrests, the ease at which you can type up a post exposing others online for quick outrage clicks can sometimes fashion this otherwise helpful social tool into an unnecessarily spiteful weapon. There have also been times where the terminally online have misconstrued a celebrity's statements or blown an otherwise milquetoast remark, joke, or piece of info out of proportion, conjuring up an unnecessary hate mob of keyboard warriors who join in on the dunking to lap up whatever internet brownie points they can milk out of the situation. They'll do this for a few days before they get bored and move on to the next thing or person they can then unnecessarily maul over. This is where the trend of digging up old posts or tweets can get really popular, as users scroll through the withering archives of a star's social media account to unearth damning opinions or one-liners that likely don't align with the brand image they've set for the public now. And I'm of two minds on this one. In my opinion, most of the time, tweets or social media posts don't really give a full picture of what a person is about, what their actual views or values are, and how they behave in their personal life. Unless it's something particularly and unquestionably heinous, I personally don't think we should be so quick to jump the gun. At the same time, if they're so persistent in putting forth a brand image that's, for example, so emphatically wholesome and preachy about being good to others, and then you find old tweets of them cracking off-color jokes and proclamations like an unhinged teen on League, then it would probably have me question the way they've been presenting themselves. But then again, people can change, and you never know whether the stuff that they said from 3, 2, or even 1 year ago are still things they believe today. So the whole ethical discussion around this is, for the most part, a pretty muddy one to me. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments. This disconnect between a public figure's persona and who they actually are as a person can particularly be an issue for those who've unwittingly placed them on a pedestal. Social media has and continues to amplify this tendency. It gives us a deeper look into what our favorite celebrities are like behind closed doors. By following every interview or keeping up with their online posts and activities, we can be led to believe that we know someone more intimately than we actually do, if at all for that matter. Some stars may embrace this nature of social media as part of their marketing, actively nurturing their existing parasocial relationship with fans. Taylor Swift was a major example of this, sometimes even pushing the boundary between fan and public figure to a questionable extent. She used to actively communicate with her fans on Tumblr and even Instagram DMs back in the day, which is on a whole pretty harmless, but then there were also the secret sessions she used to host before a new album release, where she'd handpick fans to come together at her house or a hotel for a group listening session. It seems sweet on the outset, and you have to admire how she'd go these extra lengths for fans, but all I can think of is how much this could have been a safety issue for her. Not to mention the fact that it can have already parasocial fans thinking that now they actually do know her as a person and are actually her friend on some level. At its extreme, this belief can eventually breed entitlement to her personal life, like we've seen when fans were actively trying to get her to break up with problematic pop man Maddie Healy, even writing an open letter stating their disappointment. And look, having parasocial relationships isn't all bad, of course, when maintained at a healthy distance. It can bring people together, evidently, in their love for an artist. It can help someone understand themselves better through an artist's work. And it can be a safe, low-risk way of indulging in a crush or fantasy, since being celebrities, they're likely never going to reject you. But it can also craft an idealized version of a celebrity in one's head, a version that they're ultimately never going to be. Unfortunately, just as social media makes it easy to convince us that we actually know these people, it also makes for an easy tool to punish them the moment the illusion breaks. The moment we feel like they've strayed from the perfect image we've made of them, when they turn out to not be the role model the public deemed them, even if they likely never asked to be one in the first place. And while part of an artist's brand is based around their life and persona, which can make audiences feel seen or supported by the experiences or values they appear to share, we can easily forget that they're still sharing a very curated, carefully crafted version of their life and who they are. In reality, they're still messy, complicated people who make mistakes and go through changes, a lot of the times in ways that are completely at odds with the version we had in our heads. And yeah, it really is a gut punch when someone you admired turned out to be just as flawed as the rest of us commoners, but I think that says more about the fantasy we've built around them, rather than the person themselves. That's not to say that the betrayal isn't real. It can feel very real, but it was never personal to begin with, because most of the time, they really don't owe us anything beyond the art they've chosen to share. Though keep in mind that I am talking about non-criminal acts here. Do something heinous enough and yeah, maybe you do owe it to us to be in jail. But something like the John Mulaney controversy, where he was essentially the brunt of Twitter's fury for getting sober, divorcing, and starting a new relationship, showcased a certain level of what I personally thought was unnecessary entitlement and unhealthy fan attachment among his audience. Mulaney, a beloved comedian and SNL ally, asylum, built this dorky everyman persona, often joking about his love for his wife and their child-free life. He cultivated a very likable and unproblematic brand image for the stage, and for a good while was every millennial woman's ideal nice guy, which was exactly what drove the backlash that was to come. In 2021, it was announced that he had officially divorced his wife after completing a stint in rehab, and was soon after confirmed to be dating actress Olivia Munn, who later went on to have his child. So fans felt blindsided, to say the least. This feels like my friends split up. I'm already crying. Men ain't shit. John Mulaney betrayed us all. Never been so betrayed by a man in my entire life. Tell me why I feel betrayed by John Mulaney like I was the one married to him? Everything I have learned about John Mulaney's divorce has been against my own will. And honestly, okay. The initial shock is justified, especially if you've been following his stage persona over the years as Mr. Wife Guy. But though it shouldn't have to be said, the guy isn't our friend. Who he is on screen isn't the whole picture. And also, just because he presents himself differently now doesn't necessarily mean his old persona was wholly misleading either. Like, he probably did love his wife and not want kids, until he didn't. The only thing he seems to have betrayed is the fanfiction people created of him beyond his stage presence. In an article for Bustle, psychologist and professor Dr. Tracy R. Gleason explains this whole controversy quite perfectly. They had a vision of who he was and how they related to him. It worked for them, and he turned out to be a real person. And just for context, this was actually John Mulaney's second time getting out of rehab. So the article goes on to reference this, saying that, quote, because John Mulaney was seen as reformed, fans grew comfort in thinking his unfavorable or unflattering behavior was in the past. It's like, I want you to be flawed in the way you were before, when you had recovered and it was this admirable story. I don't want you to be flawed for real. And you'd think they would have forgotten all their parasocial nonsense years later, but Unhinged fans still took to Twitter last year to call news of Olivia Munn's breast cancer karma for what Mulaney did to his wife. Like, what the fuck, guys? It's ironic how you'd think in the age of social media, getting to see or even communicate with public figures in a more candid manner, the parasocial effect of making you feel like you're actually their friend would make us treat them more like they're human. But it almost has the opposite effect sometimes, where we treat them even more like a commodity that can only exist based on our conditions, rather than, you know, any other person. A famous and incredibly wealthy person, yes, but you know, a person nonetheless, with evident faults and imperfections, despite what the media would have us believe otherwise, along with boundaries like the rest of us for what they choose to share and how they interact.
They want to know who your sister is and like what you ate for dinner. Like, mind your fucking business. Go the fuck outside and listen to the damn art or the music. Because the internet, people don't know personal boundaries no more. Yeah. And it's normal, and everyone thinks this shit is cute. It's like, we don't know each other. But then I get called an ungrateful asshole. I give you the art, I give you the music, high five. Why are y'all niggas showing up to doorsteps? Why are y'all niggas fucking hacking this? Why are y'all following niggas' moms home because you like a song? And it's not even just for me musically, it's for a fucking basketball player, soccer, actress, but we're fans. So because you like a song or because you like a movie, that gives you the permission to be a fucking weirdo. But we're no.
Once again, fan entitlement and parasociality has been around forever, but in the age of the internet, some truly bizarre behaviors have gone from cringeworthy to casually accepted, thanks in no small part to our collective case of terminally online brain rot. Apart from the paparazzi, TMZ-like behavior some Unhinged fans engage in, you also have shit like digging up people's flight details in order to sit next to them on a plane, shockingly a whole culture in and of itself around K-pop stars, to doxing their home and family members to hundreds of thousands of strangers. There's also this persistent habit of spreading around conspiracy theories, and sure, it can all seem like fun and games in the outset, but can end up having some real-world ramifications. See the Larry Stylinson conspiracy, where a certain subset of One Direction fans zealously believe that former members Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson had or are currently in a secret romantic relationship. Any piece of evidence that clearly proved otherwise was simply dismissed as a PR cover-up or public stunts issued by their controlling management, even as the stars adamantly denied it themselves, with Tomlinson just straight up telling a fan that Larry is the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard. That didn't stop the Larry truthers from twisting their words to somehow fit their desired narrative.
Realized this some years ago. There is nothing I can say There's nothing I can do to dispel the believers of that conspiracy. They are so intertwined with what they believe to be the truth now that they won't actually see the truth for what it is.
It got so intense to the point where it actually ended up straining the friendship between the two. Tomlinson has even gone on to bluntly state that this is a subject that was funny at first, but now is actually hard to deal with, as I'm in a relationship. Me and Harry are best friends. People look into our every move. It is actually affecting the way me and Harry are in public. In an article for Vox, Asia Romano states that, ironically, the movement attempting to liberate them from the closet has essentially forced them to behave unnaturally, to conform to rigid standards of masculinity in order to quash the rumors. And the level of obsession didn't even stop here. Fans of the ship have gone on to harass Louis's former girlfriend, Eleanor Calder, and her family, along with a record producer and his son, who just so happened to share Calder's last name, all under the belief that they were helping fake her romantic relationship with Tomlinson. And this shows how the passion and tenacity at which celebrity stans can stir up discourse around their favorite stars, no matter how questionable or inaccurate it may be, can also be channeled to target hate towards other public figures or even fandoms they believe have wronged or maligned their favorite artist in some way. Take, for example, the feud between Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion, where Minaj was convinced that Stallion was dissing her in one of her latest tracks, predictably causing a rift between their highly loyal, passionate fan bases. This online drama eventually culminated in Minaj's fans revealing the location of Stallion's late mother's gravesite, supposedly as a way to tempt other fans into vandalizing it. Thankfully, police have increased surveillance at the site once this was found out. Then, of course, how can we forget the hate train Swifties have launched at her exes after decoding her songs? Taylor has addressed this herself, but her choice to nurture these parasocial connections in the first place and how she's basically made speculation over her past relationships a part of her marketing surprises me that she didn't think this could get out of hand real quick. I'm not hating, by the way. I'm a huge fan of her stuff, and I'm not blaming her for every fan's actions, but leaving breadcrumbs for such a devoted audience, for me, doesn't leave her entirely blameless either. But amidst all this, what probably intrigues me most is how some fans seem unapologetic, even convicted in such behaviors, that being this obsessive and weird about their favorite stars is just regular old stan culture. Let people have their fun. That at the very least, they could tolerate your superfan behaviors, since if you've devoted a substantial amount of time and effort supporting and closely following their life, projects, and maybe even day-to-day updates in social media, you've been responsible for their fame and success, and they're now indebted to you in some way. And I don't know about that. With all their star power, it's easy to forget that musicians, actors, performers, and the like just have a job like any other. And that job is to entertain us and provide us with art to enjoy. And I honestly believe the transaction ends there. Anything else beyond that is just a bonus. This is exactly what Chappell Roan addressed in her controversial Instagram and TikTok statements earlier this year. Despite starting her music career at 17, her rise to fame didn't take off until 2023 with the release of The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess. And while not an instant hit, the album spiked in traction after she opened for Olivia Rodrigo's Guts World Tour and performed at major festivals like Coachella and Lollapalooza. From there, the buzz around her only skyrocketed, landing her in the top 5 of Billboard 200, earning a VMA's Best New Artist award, and cementing her as your favorite artist's favorite artist, which honestly, can't argue with that. Naturally, with great fame comes great cringe, specifically from the fans who lose any sense of decorum when it comes to obsessing over their ultimate bias in the music industry. For my fellow aging millennials who don't know what that is, it just basically means your favorite celebrity. I only learned that while writing this. Now, it's overwhelming to experience a sudden burst of fame, and while Rowan has stated that she's grateful for that, after all, she's been working to get recognized in the music industry for quite some time now, it's all the more nerve-wracking and anxiety-inducing when people start stalking you, harassing you, and even following family and friends from your personal life. All this under the guise of just being adoring fans who just want to get to know her better. And the fact that she comes off as having a more approachable vibe than your everyday star doesn't help things. From what I've read, she seemed to just be a regular girl pre-pop stardom. She's not a Hollywood Nepo baby and likely didn't grow up in an environment constantly surrounded by the limelight and the press. She posts on her own socials, appearing very relatable, authentic, and unapologetically herself. Yet even if she wasn't any of these things, that doesn't make any of the intrusive fan behavior she's had to deal with any less creepy. In an episode of Drew Afalo's podcast, The Comments Section, Roan vented about how some fans have begun overstepping boundaries following her rapid rise to fame. Apparently, people started to dig up where her parents lived and where her sister works, following her from place to place, getting berated when she wouldn't sign autographs, leaking and calling her father's personal phone number. One apparently even grabbed her at a bar while celebrating her friend's birthday and kissed her without permission. This all came to a head in June last year when the singer-songwriter unexpectedly choked up on stage in one of her concerts, taking a moment to share with the crowd how overwhelmed she'd been feeling in the past couple of months.
I just want to be honest with the crowd, and I just feel a little off today because I think that my career has just kind of gone really fast, and it's really hard to keep up. So I'm sorry that I'm not trying to like give you like a lesser show. It's just like there's a lot on my mind, and that's all. So just thank you for understanding, and this is all I've ever wanted. It's just heavy sometimes, so thank you for understanding.
And so finally on TikTok, she released the infamous videos you've probably seen a thumbnail of among the numerous tea channels online. In them, she addressed her ongoing concerns with fame and quite candidly told her audience that, at the end of the day, you don't know her.
If you saw a random woman on the street, would you yell at her from the car window? Would you harass her in public? Would you go up to a random lady and say, "Can I get a photo with you?" And she's like, "No, what the fuck?" And then you get mad at this random lady? Would you be offended if she says no to your time because she has her own time? Would you stalk her family? Would you follow her around? Would you try to dissect her life and bully her online? This is a lady you don't know. And she doesn't know you at all. I don't care that abuse and harassment, stalking, whatever, is a normal thing to do to people who are famous or a little famous, whatever. I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job. That does not make it okay. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make. I'm allowed to say no to creepy behavior. Okay.
This was soon followed by a similar statement on Instagram where I think she put it very well. When I'm on stage, when I'm performing, when I'm in drag, when I'm at a work event, when I'm doing press, I am at work. Any other circumstance, I am not in work mode. I am clocked out. I don't agree with the notion that I owe a mutual exchange of energy, time, or attention to people I do not know, do not trust, or who creep me out, just because they're expressing admiration. This has nothing to do with the gratitude and love I feel for my community, for the people who respect my boundaries, and for the love I feel from every person who lifts me up and has stuck with me to help the project get to where it is now. I'm specifically talking about predatory behavior disguised as superfan behavior that has become normalized because of the way women who are well known have been treated in the past. Please do not assume that you know a lot about someone's life, personality, and boundaries because you are familiar with them or their work online. These comments at first glance may come off unnervingly blunt, harsh even to some people. But I think that comes down to how a lot of us have been so desensitized to just how inappropriate and invasive fanatic behavior can truly be at times. There's this long-standing double standard for what's deemed creepy towards public figures versus any other regular person on the street. The former can almost feel like interacting with a fantasy, like nothing we do truly matters, like our actions, no matter how weird or extreme, don't have any tangible, real-world consequences. As Roan puts it, this is how most of my peers feel. Every f***ing artist is on this page. Everyone is uncomfortable with fans. Some people just have more patience. I fucking don't. Given how plenty of musicians publicly came to her support after making these statements, it seems her words struck a chord with many others in the industry too. This year, she continues to stand by these statements, recalling in a BBC interview on her first brush with mega fame, "I was looking around and I was like, this is what people are okay with all the time, and I'm supposed to act normal? This is not normal. This is crazy." And still, just as a lot of her fans showed compassion and empathized with her need for personal space, there were plenty others who were quick to drag her online too, calling her a Karen, ungrateful, and a popular favorite, she wasn't made for fame. Completely ignoring Roan's point that to blame a successful figure for choosing a career path that supposedly comes with harassment is akin to blaming the harassment of a woman on her just because she chose to wear a short skirt. I've been responding that way to disrespect my whole life, but now there are cameras on me and I also happen to be a pop star, and those things don't match. It's like oil and water, she tells the BBC. In a similar vein, although with less stalking and family doxing, pop artist Doja Cat was also caught in a whirlwind of online controversy in 2023 when she lashed out at fans for what she deemed as creepy or prying behavior. There seemed to be a bunch of incidents that ultimately led up to her outbursts, including getting hate for choosing to shave off her hair and eyebrows, backlash for not meeting with fans outside of her hotel in Paraguay, and perhaps most notably for dating the allegedly abusive Twitch streamer Jay Cyrus. Contrary to how invested, outspoken, and even influential some fandoms like Swifties are on their favorite pop star's life, Doja Cat wasn't going to have any of that from her fans. Though I will agree that she could have handled it with a little less insults, as funny as they are.
I'm literally at home on live, bitch. This is not the Grammys. You looking at me is not like I am meeting the queen. Built like a helium balloon ass bitch. Planter's peanut ass bitch.
Her sentiments weren't too far from Chappell Roan's. In an interview for Harper's Bazaar, Doja explains, "My theory is that if someone has never met me in real life, then subconsciously, I'm not real to them. So when people become engaged with someone they don't even know on the internet, they kind of take ownership over that person. They think that person belongs to them in some sense." In contrast to Roan, however, Doja took her newfound mindset of not giving a to actually excise herself from the fan base altogether. And look, I do think she did get unnecessarily mean at times. She went on to denounce her fan base name Kittens, saying that anybody who labeled themselves after that needed to get off your phone and get a job and help your parents with the house. She's outright told fan accounts to delete their presence online and refusing to post about loving her fans because she, quote, doesn't even know them. But when clapped back with comments saying that they, quote, essentially pay her bills, Doja had this to say.
Y'all the ones giving me the fame, not me, okay? Not my hard work, not my effort. I guess it's a two-way street. Maybe it's 50-50, right? I work my ass off, y'all buy tickets. I make music, y'all shake. But we don't have to be friends, bitch. I'm not your friend. I'm not your friend. I want you to know that. I'm gonna solidify that right now.
I make music and you like it. And if you don't, cool, great. I don't give a. I'm not doing it so that you like me. I'm doing it because it's fun. I love all the people who support me. I wouldn't have food on my table if it wasn't for my fans. I wouldn't have an excess of cheese sticks in my fridge if it wasn't for my fans. I wouldn't have my dog if it wasn't for my fans. I wouldn't have my house if it wasn't for my fans. Well, no, I would have a home, but I wouldn't have this house probably if it wasn't for my fans. But I'm not giving them all the credit because I do work my off, so it's like a 50-50 thing.
And I do think she's right with that particular point, at least. To say things like, you wouldn't be anything without us, or we made you as a fan of someone, kind of diminishes the hard work and artistry they put in to achieve their level of success. I mean, they wouldn't be where they are without their talent and effort either. Regardless of what you think of Doja's approach, there were parallels to Roan's case with how negatively audiences responded. Both faced backlash for daring to remind fans that fame and relatability doesn't automatically equal friendship or extra favors. And while both cases have left a significant mark in the discourse, they're really just small parts of a much larger, ongoing issue. It wasn't as widely publicized, but just a few months after Chappell's appeal to fans, Ted Lasso star Jason Sudeikis was caught on camera begging fans to literally stop following him as he walked home for the night.
Guys, dude, please stop. I'm not going to sign anything, okay? I literally have to go. I'm sorry. That was a lot. That scared the shit out of me. For real, I'm just a human being, okay? We're not gonna please stop me, please. I'm going home. Okay. Good night. All right. Maybe as you stand and wait for your turn.
And look, while it might sound exaggerated or extreme, letting unreasonable behavior slip can be a slippery slope for even more unhinged, unstable ones to emerge, which can easily veer into dangerous or even tragic incidents. I mean, just in December, Saltburn star Barry Keoghan had to call out the, quote, inhumane harassment he'd been receiving since breaking up with pop star Sabrina Carpenter. Apparently, unhinged fans of hers thought defending her honor meant stalking his baby son and showing up at his grandmother's door. Very normal. normal. And that's just one of the many deranged cases we've seen in just the past couple of years. 2024 alone saw popular stars like Taylor Swift and Emma Roberts have their homes broken into by unhinged stalkers. The year before that saw Billie Eilish and Drew Barrymore having to deal with nutjobs threatening their family members and disrupting live events in an effort to get their personal attention. These incidents have thankfully ended with arrests or restraining orders, but there have been other cases in recent history where the stars involved were not as fortunate, where the situation quickly spiraled from creepy, fanatical behavior to murder. Selena Quintanilla in 1995, Dimebag Darrell in 2004, Christina Grimmie in 2016. With the unpredictable and increasingly normalized nature of online obsessive stan culture, it's hard to fault some artists for wanting to keep their distance.
Justin, thank you very much. I come here just for you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Miss Sheila. I hate you.
I think it was just far more common for us back then, circa the 2000s and early 2010s, to expect our favorite artists to suck it up and just deal with this creepy behavior as an obligation, which is why we've let it slide for so long. It was much more commonplace at the time to see videos uploaded online claiming that a star snubbed their fans and chewed them out for it, when really they were probably just out trying to enjoy their private downtime when they were suddenly swarmed by strangers who would, understandably, freak them out and make them want to evade them. Not every well-known artist is an extroverted person, and even if they were, this behavior doesn't come off any less invasive, honestly. So I can only imagine if they were actually a more introverted, reserved personality.
I'm just quite a shy guy, like to keep myself to myself, and I'm slowly getting used to this idea that, you know, I'm a pop star, dude, I do this as a job, like.
When I had people waiting outside my house, I was losing my mind. You have like 5 cars of people outside your house, and they're literally 24 hours a day, and you're so helpless to it as well. And it's having it's stalkers with cameras, you know, just saying, oh, I'm not a stalker, I'm a paparazzi. It's like, oh, that makes a massive difference.
So, you know, at the end of the day, as much as we are probably never going to think about them this way, given their status and influence, our favorite movie star, singer, and entertainer is really just another person doing a job. Like, sure, it's a job that puts them in the spotlight, and yeah, it's exciting to see them in the wild, but that still doesn't mean they owe us their off time. I mean, you wouldn't expect special treatment from your barista just because they make your coffee exactly how you like it, so why should the dynamic be any different with actors and musicians? If these increasingly creepy online behaviors keep spilling into the real world, we may just lose meaningful interactions with our favorite artists entirely. In fact, a recent article by Hannah Ewens of The Guardian highlights this very possibility, that perhaps within the next 10 years, we'll see much tighter policing around public figures and famous artists, and they may even completely reject the idea of being approached in public altogether, at least outside of organized red carpets and meet and greets. But you never know. They may even withdraw from those too, just to further set their boundaries. Even worse, and honestly a much more likely scenario, is that our favorite singer, musician, or actor may just step away from the limelight altogether and stop making more of the art we love. Chappell Roan even mentioned this herself, in reference to her own struggles with overwhelming fame.
People have started to be freaks.
Yeah,
they follow me.
Yeah, they follow
and like
you around.
follow like know where my parents live and like my sister, where's my sister works, like all this weird shit. And I'm just like, this is the time when I was like a few years ago that I said if stalker vibes, like family was in danger, is when I would quit. And like, we're
Me
there.
too, same.
We're there.
Same.
And like we've seen with decades past, plenty of celebrities have had no choice but to do so, and even in attempting to break away from the spotlight, are hounded even more by the demons of fame. In fact, this could even dehumanize them further, with onlookers seeing this as a spectacle in and of itself and another means for content. Their own destruction just becomes another thing to mock and exploit them for. When you think about it, these harsh ways people respond to and behave around entertainers would generally be considered unacceptable to regular people we know, meet, or even just see in our daily lives, whether we dislike them or not. Like, would you demand explanations from a coworker for their divorce? Ask the cute guy at the gym to recite the thirsty text you've sent about him to your friends? No, because it's gross and weird. But I guess when they've got a well-known name, it's a free-for-all. In the same Guardian article, Ewens also brings up how even a lot of fan interactions seem a lot less meaningful or genuine today, compared to how things were pre-social media. Now, when people catch a famous person out and about, it seems the goal is to primarily snap a photo or post online for the chance at making viral content, rather than to chat about or share an appreciation for their work. Even attending concerts are plagued with this epidemic of trying to disrupt or physically hurt the performer in some way, with many audience members opting to throw shit at the artist just to record their reaction on camera, or even hopping right onto the stage to tackle the artist altogether. As Ewens writes, in other words, when fans now kiss an artist or tweet abuse at them online, it's no longer about an interaction between fan and artist in which a fan wants to feel seen by the artist, and that they might then share later with the fandom. It's about being seen online and sharing for all the world to see.
This is your mom? I don't know how to feel about this.
Lady Gaga's paparazzi performance at the VMAs may have come out in 2009, but 15 years later, it still packs the same impact it did, if not more, than when it first aired on TV. Celebrity fixations have only grown more intense, more consuming than it's ever been in our current age of online surveillance, where every post, like, and digital interaction fuels our impulse for voyeurism in ways that reality TV and tabloids of the past couldn't fulfill. And it goes without saying at this point how it's also very much fed this illusion of supposed intimacy with our favorite names and faces. All this can be fine and fun in moderation, but when we lose the ability to see these artists as people with their own lives and struggles we'll never fully understand, the history we've seen with stars like Britney Spears, Amanda Bynes, Lindsay Lohan, Amy Winehouse, and plenty others only risks repeating itself. This tendency to trash and tear them down in their prime, to treat them as mere objects for cheap views and clout, only to hypocritically deify them the moment it all implodes. And sure, yes, they're rich, they're famous, they're living in a world far removed from our own, but my point isn't to defend their privilege. It's more about recognizing how this kind of culture can end up killing the very art we claim to love in the first place. If we truly care about the work, maybe we should rethink how we treat the people creating it. Thanks for sticking around until the end of this video, guys. This was more of a ranty, opinion-based video for me rather than the heavily studies-based ones I've been doing recently. But given the recent discourse around celebrities, fans, parasocial relationships, especially in the digital age, and how fascinating and intimidating I find a lot of online fandoms, I figured I'd throw my little opinion into the mix. Anyway, if you guys haven't listened to Chappell Roan's music yet somehow, her recent album has been my favorite since last year. It's been on constant repeat on my Spotify, and I think actually topped my 2024 Wrapped. Honestly, it's also revived my love for fun pop music since Gaga's Monster era. So if you're a fan of Chappell Roan, let me know your favorite tracks down below, and let me know who your favorite pop girlies are lately, since it seems like they're on the come up again. Love to see it. Give me some recommendations. Like many others in the past year, I was also super into Sabrina Carpenter and Olivia Rodrigo's latest stuff. Anyway, I hope you guys are having an awesome start to 2025. Oh my god, where's the time going, guys? I'm scared. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
We're kind of put in this reality where we're looked at as tools, as vessels, as opposed to artists. I have people tell me all the time, well, this is what you signed up for. I'm like, that's crazy. That's like telling a girl that because she got put on a cute dress and went to a bar, she signed up for me to harass her on. No, in this day and age, we literally learn that we have to respect everyone's no. So if I tell you no, respect it. And there's a reason for that.